Imagine an empire that commanded the world's most advanced technology, an empire that signed the first ever international peace treaty, and an empire that stood toe-to-toe with the mighty pharaohs of Egypt. They were warriors of iron, forging weapons that shattered the bronze of their enemies. They were rulers of 1,000 gods, with kings who served as high priests, speaking directly to the heavens. And they were masters of diplomacy, weaving a web of power and influence that stretched across the ancient Near East. They built a civilization on the foundations of law, order, and military might. Yet for over 3,000 years, the world forgot they even existed. An entire civilization erased from the pages of history, swallowed by the earth, their triumphs and tragedies reduced to a ghost on the timeline. How is that possible? How does a superpower simply vanish? This is the story of the Hittites, a lost civilization that once rivaled Egypt and Babylon, then mysteriously collapsed, leaving behind only shattered tablets, toppled statues, and whispers carried on the wind. For centuries, their name was known only from a few cryptic mentions in the Old Testament. They were a puzzle with no pieces. Our story begins here, in the rugged highlands of Anatolia, what's now modern-day Turkey. The Hittite Empire rose from this harsh, unforgiving landscape, a land of stark mountains and windswept plateaus. It was a challenging place to build a kingdom, but it was also a fortress, a natural bastion that protected them and provided the resources they needed to thrive. From their monumental capital city, Hattusa, surrounded by massive stone walls and guarded by imposing lion gates, they built one of the most powerful and sophisticated kingdoms of the entire Bronze Age. Join us as we uncover the secrets of this forgotten empire, from their revolutionary iron weapons and thundering war chariots to the rediscovery that rewrote the history of the ancient world. By the 14th century BC, the Hittites controlled vast lands, stretching from the mountains of Turkey to the borders of Syria. They conquered cities, forged alliances, and fought legendary battles with the pharaohs of Egypt. Their greatest king, Suppiluliuma I, expanded the empire through cunning diplomacy and relentless warfare. The Hittites were among the first to forge weapons from iron, centuries before others mastered the technique. Their armies marched with chariots, their gods demanded thunder, and their laws were as complex as Babylon's Hammurabi. But the Hittites weren't just warriors defined by the clang of bronze and the thunder of chariots. They were thinkers, administrators, diplomats. They understood that an empire isn't just held by force, but by knowledge. And their chosen medium for that knowledge was humble, yet enduring: clay. In the ruins of their cities, archaeologists unearthed a treasure trove, tens of thousands of clay tablets, an entire imperial library written in the complex cuneiform script borrowed from Mesopotamia. These weren't just dusty records. They were the living memory of a civilization. On these tablets, they preserved everything: meticulous laws that governed daily life, detailed trade agreements that connected them to the known world, and epic stories of gods and heroes. Imagine holding a piece of earth that details a marriage contract or a royal decree from over 3,000 years ago. This was their internet, their library, and their legal system, all baked in the Anatolian sun. Their spiritual world was just as complex. The Hittites worshipped a vast pantheon, famously known as the 1,000 Gods. At its head was the mighty storm god, Tarhuna, whose thunder echoed through the mountain passes. Their temples stood high among the hills, open to the sky, where the crackle of ritual fires and the songs of priests sought to appease the powerful forces that governed their world, of storms, war, and the fertility of the land. But perhaps their greatest intellectual achievement was born from the crucible of war. After the bloody stalemate at Kadesh, the Hittites didn't just retreat to plot their next battle. They innovated. They negotiated. The result was the Treaty of Kadesh, signed with Egypt's powerful pharaoh, Ramses II. This wasn't a mere ceasefire. It was a sophisticated pact of mutual defense and alliance, the earliest known comprehensive peace treaty in human history. It set a new precedent for international diplomacy. Through law, faith, and groundbreaking diplomacy, the Hittites had built more than just an empire of iron and stone. They had constructed a sophisticated and resilient culture, securing their place not just through conquest, but through intellect. For a time, it seemed their order was eternal, their legacy etched into the very fabric of the heavens. If forgotten kingdoms and ancient mysteries like this fascinate you, make sure to subscribe, because every week we uncover another civilization lost to time. For centuries, the Hittites had mastered the art of survival, building an empire of iron, order, and storm. They had faced down pharaohs and forged a new world order. But around 1200 BC, a storm of a different kind began to gather on the horizon. A cataclysm that would not just challenge their empire, but erase it. This was the beginning of the end for the entire ancient world. The Bronze Age collapse. It was a domino effect of destruction. The intricate web of trade that connected civilizations, carrying tin from the east and grain from the north, suddenly frayed and then snapped. Ports that once bustled with ships fell silent. Cities that had stood for 1,000 years were put to the torch, their walls breached and their palaces looted. Across the Near East, from Greece to Egypt, empires that had seemed eternal began to crumble into dust. And in the heart of this chaos, the mighty Hittite kingdom, the superpower of Anatolia, simply vanished. Their sprawling capital, Hattusa, a city of gods and kings, was abandoned and left to the mercy of the elements. The last king sent desperate letters pleading for grain, letters that were never answered. The city's great gates were sealed not against an enemy, but by a people leaving forever. They walked away from their homes, their temples, and their history, and never returned. For 3,000 years, the people who once ruled with iron and storm disappeared from memory. Their complex language was forgotten, their powerful gods were silenced, and their entire history was erased from the annals of the earth. So, what could possibly topple such a giant? For centuries, scholars have debated the cause, pointing to a perfect storm of calamities. Some blame invasions, particularly from the mysterious sea peoples, marauders who swept across the Mediterranean, leaving a trail of devastation recorded in Egyptian texts. Others point to evidence of a catastrophic multi-decade drought that would have triggered widespread famine and rebellion, starving the empire from within. It's a theory of systems collapse, a fragile, interconnected world breaking under pressure. Climate change, internal strife, and external threats all converging at once. Was it one fatal blow, or a death by 1,000 cuts? The truth is, no one truly knows what ended the empire of the Hittites. The stones of Hattusa keep their secrets, leaving us with only the haunting echo of a lost civilization and a profound warning about the fragility of power. Then, in the late 1800s, explorers uncovered strange ruins buried beneath central Turkey. Massive stone gates, lion statues, and tablets carved with unknown symbols. When archaeologists finally decoded the writings, they realized they had rediscovered an entire forgotten civilization. The Hittites had returned, not as rulers, but as a mystery unearthed from the ashes of time. Their cities, temples, and archives revealed a complex and brilliant people. Architects of diplomacy, engineers of warfare, and storytellers of gods who shaped the sky. Today, the Hittites remind us that even the mightiest empires can fade into dust, only to be rediscovered centuries later. They ruled with iron, forged peace with pharaohs, and then disappeared into legend. The question remains, how could a civilization so powerful vanish so completely?